All right, everybody, we're back. We're watching this one last deleted scene. This is a great scene where Lee Harvey Oswald testifies. Actually, I believe he testifies for the prosecution
Of Clay Shaw.
of Clay Shaw.
The grief for Lee Harvey Oswald, buried in a cheap grave under the name Oswald.
Would it be
Nobody.
better if he was in an expensive grave?
I thought communism held the answers. I thought that everybody could be equal. I was young. I was impressionable. I admired Castro. His experimentation with that country, with socialism. I admired David Ferry. He was a man of the times. And the time was of a strong political climb. And I got into something very sinister, very evil. Guy Bannister was a very evil man. If Bannister said you do something, you did it because you were afraid. He said to me, if you ever repeat anything I have said outside of these walls, I will personally come, I will kill you, I will kill your family. I love my family. I love them so much. I love you, Marina. I love you, Rachel. I love you, Jimmy. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Jack Ruby's bullet didn't silence me. It only made my voice louder. I forgive you, Jack. You people of the world, you people of America, have been investigating this tragedy for years. Let me tell you something. Lee Harvey Oswald is innocent. I didn't do it.
I really like this, but I also really hate it too, you know what I mean? Because, like, he kind of admits
Within
that...
minutes, false statements and press leaks about Lee Oswald
He
circulate the
kind of
globe.
admits that he was
Officially.
part of this, but then he ends up saying, I'm innocent, I didn't do it. You were part of this, dude. You are not innocent. Judy Baker, if the things she is saying are true, she is not innocent. One of the things I wanted to say to the people on the knoll we were talking to today, I wanted to explain to them how the law regarding conspiracy works. If you commit an overt act to join a criminal conspiracy, you are legally liable for all other crimes committed by any other member of that conspiracy. Even if you don't know them, you had nothing to do with their crimes, you never met them, you never talked to them, you never actively conspired with them, it does not matter. You committed an overt act to join the conspiracy, you are just as guilty as they are. Like, if you were planning to rob a bank, and I say, okay, you know what, I don't really want to rob the bank with you, but what I will do is I'll let you borrow my car so you can use it as a getaway vehicle, all right? There's nothing wrong and there's nothing illegal with lending somebody your car. You can totally do that. However, if I lend you my car, knowing that you are going to use that car as a getaway vehicle from a bank robbery, I have committed an overt act to join the conspiracy with you to rob a bank. If during the course of that robbery you shoot and kill a bank guard, in the eyes of the law, I am just as responsible for that person's death as you, the person who pulled the trigger, you know? So these people who just assert, oh, well, the police destroyed the evidence, the police, they destroyed evidence and they tampered with evidence and they falsified documents. If they did that knowingly as part of the conspiracy, then those people are just as guilty. When Brownlow is pointing at that cop saying, this guy falsified reports or whatever he was saying, in the eyes of the law, that cop is just as guilty of President Kennedy's death as the person who pulled the trigger, you know?
Right. They generally come to that argument or that strategy when there is no evidence to support what they said. You can easily insert that to any point where there's a lapse in your evidence when you're making an argument. I believe this because this person said it. Well, how do you know that person said it? It was documented, but the evidence has been destroyed. I mean, you can say that for anything.
You can say that for anything, yeah. You know, where's the evidence for Bigfoot? Well, it was documented, but the evidence was destroyed, you know? I do like this scene because it's so weird, but it kind of shows you what an older, more mature Oswald might have thought about himself. You know, maybe Oswald from Beyond the Grave kind of thing. He says, you know, I was young, I was impressionable. I thought that communism held the answers, which back in the early 60s, I think we could forgive somebody for thinking that way, being young and impressionable. There's an old saying, it goes, if you're not liberal when you're young, it's because you have no heart. If you're not conservative when you're old, it's because you have no brain.
When you consider it, are you taking from it what you applying your position to it? Like, for example, when I hear Oswald, an older Oswald, older, mature Oswald say these things, it sounds like, and I'm thinking about the film and what it purports to have happened. I'm thinking about him excusing himself for being involved in the conspiracy involving Guy Bannister and Ferry and those people. That's what it sounds like he's doing to me, and he's like sort of regretting it because had he not done it, he wouldn't have been able in the position to be framed.
Yeah. I see where you're going with that. I mean, yeah, there's definitely truth to that. But I'm gonna give you some real talk right now, bro. I see shades of my own life and my own story and what this fictional Lee Harvey Oswald is saying. You know, I remember a time in my life when I was young and I was naive and I was impressionable, and you know, we all have regrets about things we said and did in our formative years, and I'm sorry for those things too. You know, obviously my things didn't have nearly the implication of a Lee Harvey Oswald, and it didn't end up costing me my life or anything. But I mean, I kind of wish I could go back and say, in a sense, in this scene, I think Lee Harvey Oswald is kind of talking to himself. You know what I mean? He's talking to the younger version of himself. And I think that's a very human thing. This is one of the reasons why I like this scene, because it does a lot to humanize Oswald as a person. You know, we have these characters, JFK, Lyndon Johnson, Lee Harvey Oswald, David Ferry, Clay Shaw. But I think it's important to remember these people are humans.
That's true.
And humans are flawed.
I feel like we're like Siskel and Ebert on this particular scene where they don't agree on such a scene like this. I don't like it really.
I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this scene.
I like the idea of self-reflection, but I don't particularly like to get the idea to reflect on myself from a scene of a person who I believe caused such a huge tragedy and such a huge negative mark on history.
Yeah.
When I want to reflect on the things that that I think I could have done better when I was younger, and maybe before, when I thought Oswald was a decent person, I'm sure he was a decent person in some aspects of his life, but before I thought he was total patsy, was more toward like being a hero. I probably would like this scene a lot better at that point. I didn't really see this scene very much when I was a conspiracy theorist. I did see it a couple times, and I saw all the other scenes a few times, but I mainly focused on the main part of the film. And I never really looked at this and reflected on myself. But I think if I could have done that a lot better when I was on the conspiracy side. But when I look at him now, it's just maybe I'm biased. That could be part of it. Maybe I should be able to assume the human part of it, and even though I believe he's guilty of something like that, I should be able to do what you're doing. Maybe I'm just too biased to do that. I don't know.
Well, it's definitely a tricky matter. There's no incorrect answer for this. There's no wrong opinion to have. But I don't know. It creates weird feelings inside of myself, because with this scene, I kind of walk away feeling some empathy and some sympathy for Lee Harvey Oswald. And as a lone nutter, I'm gonna tell you guys straight up, that's a very awkward thing to feel empathy and sympathy for the guy you know is responsible for this. But at the same time, I was thinking this thought today while we were out seeing the sights. I'm 34 years old. When Lee Harvey Oswald was my age, he had already been dead for 10 years. You know what I mean? And a person, their psyche is pretty well formed by the time they're 24 years old. They're adult, they're legally responsible, they have jobs, pay taxes. In Lee Harvey Oswald's case, when he was 24 years old, he had a wife and 2 children, you know what I mean? It was a different time where that was kind of more normal than it is now today. But the thing is, I don't know how to describe it. It's a matter of I think he honestly just needed more time to grow up. And part of the big problem with Lee Harvey Oswald is he was a loner, and he didn't have anybody to keep him in check. You know what I mean? As an adult, you understand you need to have people who... Your best friends are the ones who tell you the things you don't want to hear. You know what I'm saying? Your best friends are the ones who will pull you aside and say, hey, listen, I know you don't want to hear this, but somebody has to say this to you. He needed a buddy. He needed somebody who loved him and who cared about him and who could pull him aside and be like, okay, dude, you have a wife and you have children. Focus on that. Focus on maintaining stable employment. Focus on getting some money in your bank account. Focus on providing for your wife and your children. No more of this political activism. This is just nonsense. You're wasting your time. You need to put away childish things, and you need to be a grown-up adult and deal with reality. You know, this obsession you have with Castro and Cuba, and to a larger extent socialism and communism, this is a childish thing. Yeah, Lee, you're young, and when you're young, you're liberal and you're idealistic, but now you're getting older. And as you get older, you need to become a little bit more conservative and a little bit more realistic. And he never had that. He didn't have a close relationship with his family. Like, my best friend, he's my brother and I love him. Him and I have been friends since we were in the 3rd grade. And it's like, that guy and I, we grew up together. We became adults together. We live our lives together. Like, I'm here in Dallas. That guy is in my apartment right now watching my cat, you know? Like, there's no secrets between him and I. Him and I will talk about anything with each other because we're brothers, you know? Lee Harvey Oswald didn't have a brother. Even though he had literal brothers, those people were not close to him. He didn't have a father. His mother was insanely narcissistic and self-centered, and everything was this persecution complex, victim mentality nonsense. He went into the military thinking that he would find brotherhood and camaraderie in there. And I think one of the real sad truths is that was an opportunity for him to find the thing that he was looking for when he was in the Marine Corps, but he couldn't get through the initial stages. Like, you know, there's a socialization process that people undergo, and it begins in childhood, and it pretty much goes through most of your life until you're in your like late teens, early 20s. Especially for men, there's a joke that goes, men insult each other but they don't really mean it, and women compliment each other but they don't really mean it. In the Marine Corps, it's a very macho, masculine atmosphere, so they would tease him and they would, you know, push and shove him, and they'd shove him into the shower when he was fully clothed and shit like that.
And some would even do it not even agreeing with it, but out of the peer pressure they would participate.
Yeah. But I mean, if you can show your backbone and you can hold tough with that, eventually you can actually win those people's respect. You know what I mean? If somebody insults you, you insult them back. And when you insult them back, you kind of gain a little respect for that. And I honestly believe that Oswald did not have the socialization necessary to understand that. I have friends I work with, guys, they might insult me and then I laugh it off and I insult them back. Like what happened on the knoll today. They were saying, oh, you guys are government agents, you're shills, and I shot back. And I'm like, no, dude, you're the government agent. You're the shill. And by the time we were done, that guy was laughing and joking with us when he pulled away in his Jag. You know what I mean? Brownlow and me and you, we got into it hot and heavy yesterday, but today he was all smiles and compliments. You get what I'm saying? Like, even if his fellow Marines came on to him hard during boot camp and during basic training, if he had just taken that with good nature and given a little bit of it back, they might have respected him more, and he might have found that brotherhood and that camaraderie that he so desperately sought. And had he found that, he might not have done what he did.
I can see, if you look at Oswald in his life, how you come to a point where you can have some empathy for him. The way you explain it, it makes me think about, how I really consider Oswald. And it really didn't seem like he had much of a chance to amount of it to anything unless he was able to do it himself. Because he didn't have the support. I'm sure his mom loved him, but it doesn't seem like she was mentally capable of raising a son with a good, solid foundation where he had his feelings in order. I don't think she was capable of doing that, and there's no one close to him as he was growing up for any extended period of time.
Yeah.
So I can totally understand what you're saying, but I think I exhausted my empathy for Oswald back when I thought he was a patsy, and there was plenty of empathy to go around for him coming from me back at that time.
I'm talking about the concept of having empathy for him as a lone nutter. I think that people who think that he was a patsy, I think that those people don't necessarily have empathy and sympathy. I think they have pity for him, that he got caught up in something he couldn't control and was beyond him, and he got blamed for this thing. And honestly, I don't like to feel pity, because pity is only one step away from contempt. You know what I mean? Pity and contempt are very close to each other. They're at the lower end of that spectrum,
Maybe he figured there's just like nothing going good in his life. Why not be infamous? Why not do something where people at least know who I am? If I can't be a success, why not just do something where I can be well known? I don't know, because
he didn't find it in the Marine Corps. Then he thought he would run away to Russia and he would find it there, but he didn't find it there. Then he thought he would run away to Cuba and he would find it there, but he couldn't run away from Cuba. He couldn't run away to Cuba. Rather.
Nothing worked.
Nothing worked in this guy's life. And then finally, this one thing happened, and that it gave him not necessarily what he wanted, but something that was closer to what he wanted. But then the hard fist of reality came smashing down on him, and he couldn't deal with it because he didn't have the experience, the life experience necessary to handle it, and he kind of just clammed up, and he went into defensive mode. Who are you? Are you Lee Harvey Oswald or are you Alex Heidel? You guys are the cops. You figure it out.
Interesting.
Right.
It's a very hypothetical scene. There's, of course, it's going to be extremely hypothetical when a person is dead and you're bringing them back to life to testify. Who knows what he would have said? But it gives you a sense of his emotional vulnerability coming up as a person who really didn't have the things that he really needed to develop into a man.
Yeah.
So I can totally see that point.
Well, like the thing is, and I might get into a little trouble saying things here, but I'm going to give you guys some real talk, and I'm going to be honest with you. I firmly believe that there is a such thing as a masculine psyche and a feminine psyche, and I firmly believe that these psyches are rooted in our biology. I honestly, seriously believe that. And the thing about men is, men have to prove themselves. They have to prove their worth in a way that women do not oftentimes, right? So, Lee Harvey Oswald was caught in this system that really all of us have, as men, eventually get caught in, where you have to prove your value and you have to prove your worth to women or to the world or to society or whatever. And he just could not do that. He couldn't prove his worth in the Marine Corps, couldn't prove it in Russia, couldn't prove it in his marriage with his wife or in being a father. And that's very damaging to the nature of the masculine psyche. If you cannot prove your worth and you feel worthless all the time, that's a very dangerous feeling for a man to have, because it leads you to having to go out and find another way to prove your value. And when you have to do that, it often leads to you having to do, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, having to do like excessive things to prove it. You know, this idea of the angry loner. Like maybe Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold might be good examples of this, the Columbine shooters. They felt ostracized and disconnected from their society, so they set out to prove their own worth to that society by punishing that society, by showing them like, we are above you, we're better than you, you think you're better than me, but the real truth is that I'm actually better than you, and now this is how I'm going to show it, through violence, you know what I mean? And somebody, I think I quoted it out of one of the books, I think it was somebody on the Warren Commission or something. He said that, you know, when Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy, he was getting back at every Marine who had ever referred to him as Mrs. Oswald. He was getting back at every job that ever fired him, every woman that ever turned down his advances, every slight, every grievance he ever suffered in his entire life. It all culminated in this. And this was like payback for all that stuff. He himself probably would not have realized that's what he was doing at the time. But the truth is, that's what he was doing in practical application, you know?
Could be.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we done here, bro?
I don't think I have a whole lot to say about this particular scene. So, in light of the countless hours we've contributed to this, I think I can say that I'm ready to be done.
I think I'm ready to be done too. So this is it. This is both of our last nights in Dallas. This trip was planned a year ago. We came, we planned it out, we came, we saw the sights, we did pretty much everything we wanted to do. There's a couple of last minute things we have to do tomorrow, and then we're done, and we're both flying back to our homes and to our lives, and we'll go back to just talking to each other on Facebook. But I'm really grateful that this happened, man. I'm really grateful that we got a chance to meet in real life and talk to each other and share our ideas and our opinions about the case and interact with others who also have an interest in this case. This is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I'm really glad we did it.
I've been here numerous times before. My main reason for even wanting to come here this time was because there was going to be a group here, and Scott organized this group, so it really made me want to come and get with people that I've known, that I've met in person, also with people that I've only known on through Facebook. So I thought it would be an opportunity to get together and come together and do something like this as a group. Of course, having been here a couple times before, there's not a whole lot of excitement about seeing the same things over again. But when you come here and you're with a person who hasn't been here, and you can see the excitement and how they're taking in all these things for the first time, it kind of brings you back to that place when you were here for the first time. And actually, in actuality, there were some things that I was able to do for the first time here too. So it kind of renewed the trip to Dallas for me as well. Like the visit to Parkland was phenomenal. And we did some other things. We sat around at the Texas Theater. I thought that was the highlight of the trip for me.
You kept saying that.
Just sitting there and discussing the case was a high point for me.
That was good. That was a good discussion. I got a tiny little bit of it on video, but I really wish I had the presence. At that time, you know that expression, you get a second wind, where you suddenly get a bunch of energy? Okay, I had like the opposite of that. All of my lack of sleep over the last 72 hours caught up with me, and I had a reverse second wind, so I didn't have the presence of mind at the time to break out my camera and record it. But I really would have loved to have had a recording of that conversation we had in the Texas theater. That was good. That was some good.
It was just a simple sitting down, drinking a beverage, and just talking the case. And I thought that was the high point. I mean, I enjoyed that more than anything else. Although we did some pretty spectacular other things. We visited J.D. Tippett's grave. I've never done that.
Yeah.
We went to Parkland Hospital, and we were in an actual spot where Trauma Room 1 and 2 were. And we got to see where the emergency entry bay was. So that was pretty good. Met some very, very good people. Chris, the captain at the hospital.
Yeah.
She's
a phenomenal person.
She was really good. And then seeing Jerry again and meeting Brock T. George for the first time, that was really good. And seeing hanging out with Frida again, it was all just great. It was a really, really good trip. But I have to reiterate that the only reason why I wanted to come this time was to come and be with people who haven't really been here, and also to just get along with some people who how do I explain? It makes it kind of different, and the atmosphere is a little different when you're able to enjoy it with other people that you haven't been here with before. So that was pretty much my motivation, and having Scott put together this event, that's pretty much the reason why I wanted to be here this time, and the reason why we're here talking now.
I'm glad you came, and I'm glad everybody who had interest and was able to come was come. There's plenty of people that unfortunately could not join us. Jim, if you're listening to this, that's mainly directed at you, buddy. I really wish you were here. If you were here in this room with me and Fred right now, we've been chilling out for a couple hours watching this movie and discussing a bunch of stuff. Fred and I had a really good chat tonight, and we talked about a bunch of things. Rob Clark, I wish you could have been here. I wish all kinds of people could have been here. I wish Dennis could have come. Up until the very last moment, I thought Dennis was going to come. Fred Litwin, I had the pleasure of meeting him in Toronto a week before I left to come here.
Thanks for the book, Fred.
Yeah. Also, thanks for the book, Fred. I got a copy too. I really wish he could have been here, and I really wish he could have come. There's so many things I wish could have happened, and I wish people could have been here. But despite all of that, I still had an exceptional, extraordinary trip. I will carry the memories of these last 3 days with me forever. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing I got to experience, and I'm very grateful for that. So we're done with the deleted scenes. We're done with Oliver Stone's JFK. We're done with seeing the depository. Done with seeing...
Not me. I'll be back probably in a couple of years.
I might come back, but it'll definitely be more than a couple of years, I think. But for now, this trip is winding down. 24 hours from now, I will be back home, asleep in my bed, getting ready for work the next day.
Yeah, back to reality.
Yep. So from Dallas, Texas, it's now November 23rd, 2018, I want to send out best wishes to all of our friends out there on Facebook and various other places on the internet. I'll catch you guys later.